Am I doing this right?
You're right. You got it.
Oh, shit. Congratulations to me. I thought I was going to be fighting with this thing for a while.
No, you nailed it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, sir.
What are you drinking?
What am I drinking? I'm drinking whatever my wife had left over from Valentine's Day.
Is it wine?
What's that?
Is it wine, beer, mixed drink?
Wine. We don't drink beer at this house. Yeah, we don't. I got the kiddos. Well, beer takes up too much room in the fridge, you know?
I want to match up with you, so I'm going to get some wine.
Just enjoy yourself, whatever you want, you know?
Have you seen any or listened to any of the podcasts that I've done so far?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've actually listened to quite a few. In fact, Noelle McNaughton, she turned me on to listening to you. She let me know that you were doing this. She was super excited about it, you know, and she was telling me like, and then they shared the one you did with Alea, and I listening to you guys talk and like just like kind of like how old friends would talk, like I kind of, it made me feel like I was getting to know both of you a lot better, a lot more than you know that I felt like I did, and it made me feel good actually, because I felt like at the end of it, like, okay, maybe I can reach out to you guys and maybe try and reconnect. And I've done that with a couple people from your podcast actually.
Yeah.
Just because, you know, just getting to know people more on a personal level versus like the expectation, I guess, that you have when you think about, you know, people from back then. Cause like, you gotta understand, back in high school, especially at Wissahickon, those were rough years for me personally. I had a lot of family stuff going on. Like I had a lot of emotional stuff going on. And I remember, trying to make friends and having a really tough time with that. And I remember getting bullied a lot. So I hated that, you know. And then, you know, after high school, you know, I feel like I changed a lot, and I still try to reach out to a lot of the people, talk to them, you know. But I always felt like certain people were at like a higher level than me. You know what I mean? Like when I was younger, I felt like I was like the bottom, you know what I mean? Like I was just kind of there doing my thing, but I never felt like I was a part of something. You know what I mean? I never felt connected.
Yeah.
And,
well, when I
listen to you guys talk and I hear about that kind of stuff, I'm like, oh my God, these people are going through almost the same shit I was, you know? And that made me feel like maybe I could reach out and like just start talking. And I did that with a couple of people, and I feel like, yeah, you know what, we have sparked some good friendships, you know, at least I feel like that. I don't know how they feel. For all I know, they could give a shit, but
they've
happy with it, you know.
They've all written me in the past couple of days, and they said they hate. No.
Hey.
No, you know what's funny, Mike, is I was thinking about you today, and I generally just try and think about what are my memories of that person. And what I really remember about you, and it's funny, like you kind of talked about, you know, being bullied, and I go back to a phrase that Pat Novak used in relation to like a TV show. And he said, you know, he was kind of a nerd. So he used the term like freaks and geeks. Yep. And I definitely, like, if I'm looking back, I go, I feel like Mike was definitely treated like the freak.
Yep. No, I was. You're right.
And I remember
everywhere I go.
Well, but I remember
it was all black, right? I was into this like weird gothy thing, and I couldn't talk to people. Like I didn't have the words. You know what I mean? I was dyslexic, so I was falling behind on my education. So when I looked at other people's grades and I looked at my own, right, I was thinking, well, what the fuck?
Right.
Why am I doing the hardest that I can and screwing up? Right. So what I used to do is I remember I would act out a lot. I remember being in computer class one time and learning how to pull RAM out of those computers. So I used to pull the RAM out of the computer just to like show like, you know, these people sitting next to me, I screwed the computer, you know, or just, you know what I mean? Like I didn't care. So I was a bad kid, you know, and with that being said, it's just because I didn't know how to connect with people. Like at the end of the day, that's what we want. We all want to be able to connect with people. And back in the day, I had no idea how to. So that actually, like I said, it got me into this art thing, right? Because when I today, even to this day, sometimes I have a hard time expressing myself. So what I would do is I would draw pictures, just draw my emotions, draw my feelings, draw the inner world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like when I can show that to people, it gives me an opportunity to talk to them on a more equal stage, if that makes sense. You know? So like that's that. Here, cheers.
Cheers, buddy.
Yeah, like I only had a couple like real friends. I think like growing up, what I used to see all the time. I don't talk to any of those guys really much anymore, but I used, I've lived all over the country. I've lived in Oklahoma. I've lived in Texas. I've lived in Washington State. I've lived in Las Vegas. I live here in Florida now. I lived in like 5 different houses in high school. Just growing up, like I was all over the place. So
where did you start?
It was never anything stable.
Where did you start at Wissahickon?
Yeah,
where did you start at Wissahickon? When did you come into the district?
I went to Shady Grove, right? So
I thought I remembered you. Yeah.
Yeah, I started at Shady Grove, and I remember I used to sit at this desk with Jamie Rosen, and I remember I used to poke and prod at her all day long because I had a secret crush on her, but don't tell anybody. And then don't tell my wife especially. Tell both of us. Anyway, so I talked to some people there. I became friends with a couple people like Mike Roman, whatever. And then I still talk to him on occasion. But like I said, we went to Shady Grove, went to the middle school, went to the high school, and then in 9th grade in the high school, I wasn't necessarily expelled, but it was pretty freaking close to it. So from there, I went to Wincode Academy for a year, and then I wasn't expelled, but I wasn't really, I left that one too. I went to Anderson Alternative Program, and I did good. So they let me come back to Wincode and graduate. And then from there, did community college over at Monco, and for 2 years, still couldn't figure out what I was going to do with the rest of my life, and joined the Army. Was a medic for a little while. I didn't really do anything super duper cool. But then while I was there, I just started doing this art thing some more, and came back from there, went back to school, broke my back, sued the crap out of LA Fitness.
Wow.
Made a little bit of money, started learning about day trading, stock market stuff, and for the most part, that's how I support myself, is through the art and the market. So we make out pretty good with that. Nice. But
when you were,
go ahead. I'm telling you the entire life story. You asked for a small piece, and I just keep going. Sometimes you guys tell me to shut up.
Thanks for joining me. Podcast is good. We did it all. Thanks, man.
Thanks,
later. You mentioned you were friends with Mike Roman. Was that was elementary school era? That was
yeah, I think so. I remember riding my bike to his house all the time.
I was going to say, what was your friend experience outside of the school? Was it neighborhood or?
No, sort of. When I was a kid, I had a bike. A bike meant freedom, and I had no supervision, so I would just ride, right? And I would do 5 to 10 mile bike rides almost every other day, right? So I would ride. I lived on Norristown Road and Bluebell in this little cul-de-sac. But I would ride from there all the way down to Ambler, and I would hang out with people down there on occasion. I would hang out with Roman, this kid, Pat McGinn, Mike McGee. I don't know if you know who those are. Yeah.
I had Spanish with Mike McGee back in the day.
Yeah.
And
he was a cool guy, man.
And Pat went to Catholic school, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah. And then let me see real quick. Who else did we hang out with? Like I said, we would run into people all the time in Ambler and chill with them. Lori Baldega, I don't know if you remember her.
Yeah. I worked with Lori. I worked with Lori at Wawa for a long time.
Yeah. So I would hang out with them as much as I could. I remember Amy Sheehan.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, when I started skipping around with the different schools, I made friends in all these different places. So I spent a lot of time hanging out in Doylestown. I would go down to the city every Wednesday to go clubbing, every Saturday and Sunday as well. You know what I mean?
When you got older.
I think I started when I was, I wasn't exactly legal for some of them.
But you weren't in elementary school going clubbing.
Oh, no, come on. Maybe they could let me. I don't know.
What kind of stuff? Kind of stuff were you guys into when you're hanging out with Mike Roman and Mike McGee and those guys?
Absolutely.
What's that?
A lot of smoking.
Oh,
a lot.
And this is as a teenager.
An excessive amount. If you when you go to Salad Works and they have that giant thing of lettuce, it would be like that, and we would just enjoy, and it was fun.
How old are you when this is happening?
And then we would watch stupid movies. The dumbest things, but it was funny because you're high and you're free. And what do you not have to worry about? life and responsibilities. You know what I mean? They can go fuck themselves, you know, and it was fine. It was good. But I smoked a little too much. And I remember that when I did that, like I would go to school and I remember just passing out. This is one of the reasons I was asked to leave Winco. My first period, I would show up to school and you would walk in their front doors and there were benches and I had this big trench coat, right? And I used to cover my head and I would hide like on one of these benches somewhere where nobody would see me and I would sleep and I would nap. I remember one time I passed out underneath one of the teacher's desks. Right. I'm not even kidding. There's no joke. Right. And it was bad, man. Like I would go to school, but I wouldn't necessarily go to school. Like I would go hide in the library and go take a nap or whatever, just because, you know, you're trying to let it work through your system. I was a smart kid. So I would usually do well on tests, but I had never studied. I never actually went to my classes. I got on truancy.
This is all as like a teenager in high school, right?
Yeah.
What kind of kid?
Oh, you're still asking about middle?
Yeah. Just in general, which is fine. No, it's totally fine. This is still great stuff. But I'm just curious in general, like what kind of a kid, like you mentioned like poking Jamie Rosen, and were you into art in school as like in elementary school, middle school? Like was art?
What I would do, remember I told you I couldn't connect with people. I didn't know how to start a conversation. You know what I mean? So I would sit next to people I would want to talk to, and I would just be like, oh my God, what do I say? How do I deal? You know what I mean? Like, just nervous, like scared to talk to anybody. So what I would do is I would sit there and I would draw pictures and I would keep looking over at them, seeing if I can get them to pay attention to me. Right. And then like, they would always look over and say, oh, that's good. I remember another girl I had a crush on. Don't tell my wife. Grace Wong. Like whenever I saw her, I would bring out the paper, and start drawing because I knew she liked my art. You know, it'd be an opportunity to talk to a girl. Oh my God. Right. And so I remember that. Let's see. So yeah, that's kind of where it starts. So I would draw a lot of like you know, like back in that, when you're that old, what do you draw? You draw like dragons, and you draw like, you know, Superman or whatever, and it got attention, you know? So I would do that. And then, you know, as I get older, the drawings matured a little bit more.
What are your memories? You mentioned like being bullied. Did that happen? Was that starting in elementary school?
I walked into Shady Grove. Moment I walked in fact, I got to the point where I remember I used to come home in like tears, and my mom used to call up the principal and be like, what's going on? Why isn't anybody doing anything about this? And like the principal and I would have to meet from time to time, and we would talk. I would tell him what's going on. And a lot of it would be on like the bus to school, because there was like all the older kids, and I wanted to be cool and I'd try and talk to them. But like, you know, like I said, I didn't know how to connect, and I wore like weird tie-dye shirts. And so I kind of stood out, and, you know, I started picking them. But, you know,
is it because I had similar I have very similar memories of like my personality back then. So when you talk about like poking or you know, drawing and kind of looking over, waiting for the reaction, I felt like so much of my childhood was just wanting reaction from people. And
that's exactly right.
Oftentimes my problems would be because I would pay attention to other things, because I was always looking for a way to get a reaction. So if there's something going on over here on the bus, maybe I can be funny. Looking back, were you? Dude,
Brad. You were like, I remember Red Shirt Player, like with your rap songs or something. Yeah, I love that, man. I don't know what you did with it, but you need to bring that back, man.
Are you kidding? So I mean, like literally this weekend on the We Weren't Friends in High School podcast stream, I started releasing, it's a little mini podcast series called REDSHIRTPLAYA. It's a quick little podcast, John, there. And it's like a 6-episode series that's going to be rolling out on this stream where I'm releasing that music again.
Yeah. No,
so you can get it right now on the podcast stream. You can get the first 2 songs.
After we talk.
Yeah. You get the first 2 songs.
After we talk. Oh yeah, no, absolutely, man. Like you were always a super funny dude, you know? And like, I remember when I was a kid, like I liked hanging out with you, you know, because I didn't hang out with you much, you know, because I guess, like I said, I was shy. I didn't talk to people, but you used to hang out with some of the same people I do. Like I remember Jason Artui, like all that kind of stuff, like, you know, but yeah, it's funny. I look back in retrospect and I keep thinking, I did not live life well as a young kid. Like I should have done it better. I should have talked to more people. You know what I mean? I should have not been so nervous all the time.
Yeah, but you know what? The high school world, it was really hard to navigate. And you know what? My strongest memory today when I have two memories. One I'll get to, but the biggest thing was I remember, especially in high school, I remember, I became really good friends with Scott.
Yeah.
And previously to that, or prior to that, I was not friends with Scott. Scott and I were enemies, in middle school.
Yeah.
And I remember, him being attached to you, and Scott and I became friends because of his friendship with Ray. And it was just like Ray being my best friend and Ray being Scott's best friend. We couldn't fight anymore. We had to be friends. We had to get over that shit. So that changed in 8th grade. And then
real quick.
And then 9th grade, we really became friends to where like Scott would come over to my house and it was like a group thing. But I felt like there was kind of an attitude towards you from me, because I think I bought into kind of the hierarchy thing. Like I said, the freaks and geeks, right? Yeah. So I think I recognized that, like, especially because I wasn't friends with Scott in middle school, I think the whole like, oh, Scott and Mike Volpicelli, I know him from Shady Grove, but like, he's not cool. No one want, you don't want to aspire to be his friend. I felt like that was like the real mentality. Which isn't right, but that's kind of like, that's what I felt was on me from other people, right? And so it's kind of like going down. I mentioned this with like JP, where like you look at people that are you feel like are under you because you feel like people are looking down at you from up here. Then when I became more friends with Scott, I felt like Scott's friendship with you dissolved, because I don't really remember you, and maybe that's because you left Wissahickon, but I don't really remember you.
No, it was over a girl.
Okay, there you go.
It was over a girl.
Because I remember.
So here, I'll break it down. Yeah. So me and him, we became buddies. We were hanging out all the time. When he would have an interest in a woman, sometimes I would have an interest in the same woman, and it would be like awkward. And I think it happened like twice where we had an interest in the same girls, and then one of them I actually like bought like something for. And he got so mad at me, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna kick your ass. I'm gonna blah 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 blah." And whatever, man. Like you just gotta let it go. But after that, we after high school, we became. Was it after high school, or were we still in high school? We were still in maybe, and we became friends again, and we would hang out all the time. But then over another girl, like we fought again, or had some like weird thing, and the friendship dissolved again. Which whatever. Like in this world, one thing I've learned is that people are going to walk in and out of your life, and you just kind of let it happen. You don't really just don't hold on to stuff that's not meant to be.
But you know what, though? A big part of like one of the things that swirls around my head that was a spark for this show was like, what does happen with those friendships, and why those people that you're close with at a certain time, especially, I think with me, I go back to elementary school where I felt like we were all kind of forced to be friends. And I felt like once I got to middle school and, the friends that I had specifically, I didn't really have any class with in the pods and didn't have interaction with. So I felt like I was always starting over, which I never did very well. I didn't start over very well. So I think I always wonder what happens to those friendships. When that happens to you with Scott, are you wondering, like you said, you got to move on, but are you wondering at that young age, that can't be where your mindset is of moving on. You got to be wondering like, what the fuck's happening to this friend I've had for years?
Sort of. And I'm going to tell you why I say that is all right. I think that as I got older, I learned a lot of things. One of the things was, especially like my first girlfriend ever in my life, she killed herself, right? She committed suicide. And I remember for years I held on to that, like, oh, this blame, this guilt, what's going on, da, 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 da. And then later on, I remember being in other relationships where for almost years, I would just kind of, feel like some kind of attachment that's holding me back, making me feel horrible. And then what I learned later on in life, especially after the military, is that when we think about things that cause us suffering, it's usually because we're attached to an idea or a belief or something, right? So what I found is that if you want to get rid of suffering, you just have to break the attachment, right? Or walk away from the attachment, or allow the attachment to just kind of come and pass, right? Not necessarily identify with it. So, all right, let me give you an example. So when you're angry, right, and you start thinking crazy thoughts like, oh, I'm going to punch you in the face, blah, 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 right? A lot of times people identify with those thoughts and they're like, oh, I'm this angry, aggressive person, right? But what that is that's just hormones kicking in, fight and flight responses, chemicals in your body, right? If you wait 30 minutes, that all those chemicals get metabolized and you'll return to whatever your default is, right? So what's happening in your head is you're having these thoughts and you have a choice. You can either identify with them or you can allow them to come and pass, right? So when I think about certain people in my past, right, where I think that maybe it's best if I just kind of go my own way, right? I just allow that thought to come in and then pass. But there are certain people, right, who have always been non-toxic. And I'm not saying that Scott's toxic. I'm just saying that my relationship with him as a person and our friendship was. So I need to walk away from that. And I'm not saying that he's like that with all people. I'm saying that that was a thing that happened with us. So what I want to do is I want to find a way to, just live my best life, right? And therefore I might get a thought, hey, what's going on with so-and-so? But I'll allow that thought to come and pass. I won't attach myself to it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So like, I think that what you're saying is very important, which is the most important thing I think in this entire life that we share as people is connections. Nothing else matters. It doesn't matter how much you kick ass at something. It doesn't matter, how much money you make. It doesn't matter how many times you've been to, different countries, states, whatever. The only thing that matters is the connection that you have with another person, right? The feelings that you share with them, the passion, right? Sure. And I think that in this life, what we really need to focus on is the people that add a positive, thing to that, or a positive aspect to that. So, I think about my friends, right, from back in Pennsylvania. And I know, like, for example, one of my best friends, back in Pennsylvania, like Mike McGee, Mike Roman, Noelle McNaughton, or her last name is Furlong now. She'd probably kill me if she heard me say that. But I think about those guys, and every single one of them has added more positive in my life than negative. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out of my way to keep them in my life, not because they're giving something to me, but because they made my life better, and maybe hopefully I can do the same for them. Because at the end of the day, right, like, if you really want to judge your life, you have to look at the ripple that you make, right? Because you are going to do things that are going to inspire other people, right? So in what way do you want to touch this world and the people around you, right? What way do you want to do that? Do you want to do it through a negative thing, just having a fun thing? Or do you want to make a real lasting change? And so, like, I think about, like, Noelle, for example, when I was about to give up at certain points of my life, she kept pushing me, do art, do art, do art. And when she did that, I started to find a voice, right? She was awesome in that way. And I know that for me personally, there's certain things that I've hopefully been able to do for her to help her as well through some difficult times. I think about with Mike, same deal with Mike, like, he went through a lot, and hopefully he remembers me as a person that's doing awesome to help him out too. But at the end of the day, to be honest with you, it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters, like I said, is the connection. And hopefully we continue to have that connection. Like, there's I'm a Buddhist, right? So there's a meditation that we do about the last moments of life, right? When you're in that hospital bed and you're not going to get out of that, you're not going to recover, right? What's going to matter then? What's going to matter when your mouth starts drying out because you don't have enough saliva, right? What's going to matter when your chest is too heavy for you to be able to take those last couple breaths, right? Are all the things that you had going to matter? The money, the fame, the whatever? No. It's going to be the ripple that hopefully that you made through connections, and strong ones, and hopefully the positivity that you leave behind. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What you're speaking of, though, is very advanced thinking that I completely agree with. And I, when you talk about, like, recognizing relationships that are toxic or are not, good for you to continue, and you need to kind of make that clean cut. And I do those things now, but when you're a teenager, you don't know that, right?
No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
So
because of that, we had to go down a dark path, for me. So for example, with me, I was, like I said, I was very much into that goth thing, right? Dressing in black and being like,
were you wearing a trench coat?
Yeah. I'm going to get your attention by being weird.
Did you wear a trench coat?
Yeah, I bought a trench coat after Columbine too. Isn't that bad?
Oh, you did it after Columbine?
Yeah.
After it was banned. When did you leave Wissahickon?
I left in ninth grade.
Did you came back though at some point, correct?
Not to Wissahickon.
You never ever came back?
I tried to. It wasn't going to happen though. And the reason being is I think that people were just really, really uncomfortable with that entire situation. I think that people were more comfortable with people like me in another place, right? Which was Anderson Alternative Program and Wyncote Academy.
When you say uncomfortable situation, what do you mean by that?
I mean, there was a lot of kids at the school. There was all this weird, if you dress in black, you're a scary person, right? If you're goth, right, you're a scary person. Oh, if you listen to Marilyn Manson, right, you must be a devil worshiper. All of a sudden, never once in my life have I worshipped the devil, but that's what people would say because I wore lots of black and because I didn't like Christianity or any of that stuff. I wasn't a fan, but I mean, to each their own. If somebody likes it, that's your thing. Then as you get older, I think you just learn to hopefully respect that. Respect each other's differences. Yeah. I think that back in Wissahickon, people were looking for kids of a particular type as far as the teachers on who they were going to help and who they were not going to help. And I didn't get help. Well, I mean, that's not entirely true. I remember in ninth grade, I had to do a special group therapy class with 6 other kids that were going through a really traumatic stuff, and I remember, I'm not going to give names for that, sure. But I remember I had to go through that. It wasn't really that helpful for me. In fact, I remember talking about my proms in that class and people would be like, what? That's a prom? My prom's bigger than yours. You know what I mean? There was no dialogue. It kind of helped, And so I like I said, I tried to deal with my own emotional stuff and I didn't have anyone to go to or talk to, not really. And except for other kids that were suffering through other really traumatic things, there were things that were happening. And I think that maybe we all bonded over common trauma, to be honest with you. And then I remember even though I was hanging out with a lot of them, it was really hard for me to still find a place with them because some of these guys started going off and doing some really hard drugs. And that wasn't really me. I'm not, I remember I did acid once. I had a bad trip. I remember that in order to try to get people to leave me alone sometimes, I would make rumors up about myself, about drugs. But Is this during high school? Yeah. A lot of that was in high school.
When you're I have
trauma since the beginning, man. My family was. My father was a big time doctor, where he had MD, PhD. He wrote books. He dedicated his book to this woman, Brenda, who was cheating. He was cheating on my mom with. I remember we'd make long distance phone calls. My mom would see it. She would blame me for making the phone calls. I'd be getting in trouble. I'd be getting treated like I'm doing something wrong all the time. I remember, you know what I mean? Just is being ignored in my own house all the time. I remember, what were some other things? Oh, there was a lot. Some of the stuff I'm not sure I want to mention per se on the thing, but. Do
you have brothers and sisters? Were you only child?
I had 2 sisters. They were before my dad remarried. Yeah, I had 2 sisters. I'm 13 years older than my youngest sister. So, I mean, she had a completely different life than I did. My other sister, my family used to treat the males different than they would treat the females, but my mother, she's got borderline personality disorder. So I don't know if you're familiar with that, but at one moment they hate you. The next moment they love you. The next moment you're a demon. The next moment you're something else. And, so it was a lot. It was a lot to do. To deal with. But my sister, Well, go ahead.
You're dealing with stuff like that, like in like elementary school.
I was dealing with that since I was a kid.
Yeah. So when you said you had like no real parental supervision, that's what's going on is your mom's.
Part of it. Yeah, my mother would work all day. My dad would work all night. You know, when I was home, nobody was really there, so I would go out. You know, I literally had no parental supervision. I remember one time I was at Wincoat and I took some pill that some kid gave me because we were like, oh, try this. And I went and I did a soccer game because I was on the soccer team. And I came back home and I was so dizzy from this medication that I passed out in front of my doorstep to my house. And I remember my neighbor saw me and ran over and thought that, you know, something was going on and called the hospital and called everything. But like this is almost at like, I remember like, where was it? Maybe like 5 or 6 o'clock at night. You know what I mean? Like, what time do you get off at school? You know, there was no parents, you know, so, you know, they didn't get home until much later. And then, like I said, when they were home, my mother was emotionally all over the place. And so you can't connect with her, you know? And so I would go out upstairs, hang out, or I would go visit friends. I remember one time my mother, during when I had a dentist appointment, we went down to Philly, and while I was at the dentist appointment getting teeth pulled, she left me in the city. She just fucking left.
Wow.
Right? I had to catch the R5 train home, right? And I got to Ambler train station. I'm on medication. My mother just left me in the fucking city by myself. I went to go walk to Mike McGee's house because it was close to this train station. I called up my mother. I was like, where the fuck are you? And she, you need to come home right now. I'm like, fuck no, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying right here. And so like, I think it was like at the age of like 15 or 16, I left home with them. And I remember I like ran away from home. I slept in, Dewan Holmes, the basement to his building one night from running away from home.
How does that happen?
I was just wandering around Ambler and I was scared, and I saw some people that I knew, and they knew Dwan, and they knew that I had problems, but they didn't want to deal with me, so they took off running. Dwan stayed, and he asked me, he's like, dude, are you okay? I'm like, I don't know, man. And he's like, hey, I don't know you, but like my building's right down the way, and I'll bring some blankets for you, you know, and I'll get some food for you or something, you know. And I stayed in his fucking basement. And then the next night, I remember I don't remember what I did the next night, but I just remember like that was a weird time, man. That was a really weird time. Like I said, I was house hopping for a while. I ended up moving in with a friend of mine and living with her for almost a year. I remember living with my grandparents for a couple months, then moving back in with my parents for a couple, and then something would happen and I'd be asked to leave again, you know? And like I said, like while all that was going on, I didn't know how to talk to people. Right? I couldn't tell you how I was feeling. You know what I mean? Because there was a lot of thoughts and they were all over the place, you know? So what did I do? Yeah, like I said, I remember I kind of like gave up on people and Bluebell and all that kind of stuff. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to join the military and I'm just going to let whatever happen, man. And then I got in the military and the PTSD kicked in. And I was not very good at my job. It sucks, but it is true. And then when I was in there, I just did a lot of art for the military. And that's when the art really started to kick off because, and I knew that there was something there. There's something important because I used to do art for my sergeant majors. I used to do art for my captain for my unit. You know what I mean? I designed a certificate of appreciation that they would give out to people that were helping out the unit. This right here. This is an award.
Wow.
This isn't from my unit, but this is from a unit where I did an art piece for them. And they appreciated it so much that they sent this to me. This flag was flown in a bomber that was bombing Iraq.
Wow.
When we were at war with them. You know, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So like here, you can take a look and see if you can read that, you know, but that was.
Yeah, for people that are, wait, can you hold that back up again?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Just for people that are listening, Michael Volpicelli, 31 December 2015, 1 January 2016, aircraft. American flag was flown in combat over Syria and Iraq on board a B-1B bomber in support of Operation Inherent Resolve.
Yeah, there's not a lot of these flags floating around, but like that's cool, isn't it? You know,
That's
like
really cool.
when I was in the military, I got a bunch of these awards. Like, well, not a bunch of these, but I did get a bunch of awards. Like I got commander's coins. I got, what else did I get? I just got a lot of notice for doing this, like, you know, for doing the artwork, and that was cool, you know. And then after I got out of there, and I went back to school, I went to Oklahoma State University for college. While I was going to college, my sophomore year, I started doing international art shows. I did art shows in South Africa. I have, wait a minute, let me see if I can find it, if it's still here. I must have it upstairs, but I have a little trophy coming in first place in an art show that I did in Japan. I did one in London, England. Like I got to tour the world. Like it was awesome, man. And I'm hoping to eventually get back to that, but I mean, we'll see what happens. You know, like I think that, you know, like I've done Steve Harvey. I've been on his show. I've been on Fox News a bunch of times. I've been all over the place in Las Vegas doing shows. So like it kicked off, man. It was cool, you know. Yeah. So I think what happens is that like I told you, I'm dyslexic, right? So reading and writing has always been hard. Communicating with people has always been really hard. You know, when growing up, never getting attention, never really realizing how to communicate with people in an appropriate way was kind of tough. And even to this day, you know, I'm not the most appropriate person in the world, but hey, I have fun, and hopefully you do too. You know, hopefully you find it a little interesting. When
you were going through like these issues at home, and then I'm assuming you're just kind of coming back in school. Yeah. The next day, like nothing happened, you know. Yeah. It reminds me of like what Barclay kind of talked about with, you know, she was bullied. She had a tough life at home. And she would go through these things. And then I go, so, you know, what happens after that the next day? And she goes, well, I just come to school the next day.
Yeah, exactly right.
And you just have to, like, nothing happened. You just have to be one of the kids. Did you ever receive any type of help, or was there any type of like notice of, hey, Mike, can I help you?
Hey, Brad, it was go get a spoonful of concrete and harden up. That's what it was, you know? And it's a funny saying, you know, but when you're a kid, like that doesn't really help, you know?
You know, when I was going through like all the shit that I would go through, and I would get like speeches like that, you know, often my reactions were based off of what I felt were like injustices on my character, on my person, someone telling me to shut the fuck up in public. And it's like, you can't talk to someone like that, you know, and so I would instigate, but then I would get in trouble because I would be the loudest or the most aggressive, you know, at the end of the altercation. And so I would draw the attention, but I always wanted them to fix the problem that instigated it.
Yeah.
What do you think that is about? Do you think, I mean, I guess on your side, do you think that you were, like I mentioned, like I was attention seeking. Do you think that you were do you think that your like persona, your person was like frowned upon because you were eccentric? Do you think like teachers?
It's a little bit of both, right? So you say frowned upon, but that was from one group, right? So other groups would be like, oh, welcome, you know, let's get to know you. By the way, here's pot, you know, or here's blah. So it's a very easy way to fall into the wrong group, right? Because there's a lot of people, Brett, that suffer from trauma, especially from childhood trauma and dealing with toxic homes, right? And we all want to be able to talk about it. We all want to be able to get through it, right? We all want to try to figure out the answer, right? Like the meaning to whatever this is, right? Our existence. Why is this happening to us? You know what I mean? We're all trying to figure that out. So one group, would always be like, oh, that's the scary kid, avoid him, right? But I was trying to put off that persona because I was scared to talk to you, right? I was scared to talk to others. So I put out this giant billboard on my body, which was, I'm scared, right? And I want you to kind of keep.
Do not approach.
Yeah. Do not approach. Right now, with that being said, some people still approached, and those people we would still find ways of talking. Look, I don't think that when I say that I was a bad kid, I wouldn't. I did a lot of bad shit. Never mind. I was trying to find something redeeming, but there's nothing, man. I used to throw raves. I'd have like 400 people at the house, you know, from time to time. people still message me like back when I was in high school. I threw a party at our place, right? Where we took half of the shit in my basement, we threw it in a bonfire. The fire turned like green, purple, all different toxic colors. You know, we threw a couch in it while like people were sleeping on the fucking thing, right? Because like I said, we had a couple hundred people at the house. We picked it up and we were going to throw it in. Like people were waking, like we were crazy. We were doing crazy shit, you know? And I still get people being like, man, I remember your parties, man. That was wild. Like I've never been to something like, you know, but anyway, I would do stuff like that again, like to reach out to people. I'd have lots of people coming over who never met before, but we had lots of pot and we had drinking and we had no supervision. So we can get away with a lot of things, you know?
It's funny because I think that the whole party thing, especially like as it pertains to this podcast, it's always so far, it's been linked to the cool kids, the popular kids. But, you know, here you are. And it feels like, you know, one of the questions I always ask is in middle school is when I felt like the partying and just the life was so much more mature than the world I was living or I was even like able to handle.
Can you explain like that a little bit? Can you go in?
Well,
like, mature?
So I felt like in middle school, I felt like it started in middle school where every Monday you would hear about the parties that so-and-so had, the drinking and the drugs that people were doing, the sex that people were having. And these were like, you know, I famously kind of talk about as being like TV show plots. You know, this is like what I was watching on 90210. These weren't things that no one in my world, you know, Ray didn't drink or smoke and didn't date. Like my friends weren't in that world. So to hear about these things, and these are things that I think when I look back now, or when I was in high school,
you didn't miss out.
But that's what I felt.
If that's where you're going with it, because I did do that shit. It wasn't really that like. It's
well,
like
that's the thing, though, right?
Wait a minute. It's like when you're a kid and you're like your friends go to a bar. It's like, oh, there's a bar, right? And like when you go to those things, it's like, oh, we're at the thing now. Like it's like, okay, what do we do now? Well, we're going to go stay in our group of friends and we're just going to talk about things. So it's the exact same thing that you would have done anyway if you just had some friends come over and play Xbox. So people talk, oh, you missed out. You didn't miss out on shit.
Well,
like,
that's what I guess I'm wondering is like, was yours like, but you're talking about these parties, right? And all that, right? You're throwing like, and that was just shit that I didn't. And that's stuff that I think in college, I was like, oh yeah, absolutely. Like that's my world, you know, into my 20s and a little bit into my 30s. Like that's the type of just debauchery I love to be around. But you were doing in high school. And then I think it's just interesting because I always related it to the cool kids, the popular kids. But, you know, and I'm reminded of like Cobra Kai, right? I just finished binging Cobra Kai, where the kids who were the nerds now are tough karate kids and they are throwing their own party. They're drinking and all that. So like,
absolutely, we're throwing our own thing. We're not invited to yours. We're going to have our own. We're going to show you up, motherfucker.
So, yeah, I mean, that's,
we're going to throw something you wish you came to.
That's what it's so reminiscent, you know, so that it's interesting because it's the first time I've kind of like I've heard someone talk about that of being like not in the cool kid crowd. And, you know, Ryan Dunn talked a little bit about like, you know, him and his friends would like have beers or whatever, but like you're talking about you said you were throwing raves. These feel like ragers and so, you know, the drugs and like drinking, but you're not in but it's not a community of the quote unquote cool kids, right? If they're up here, you know, you're kind of like the underworld of kids and you're all partying. I don't know. It's just a different thing that we've heard than we've heard in the past.
Yeah, no, we definitely had our quote underworld. So like, for example, like, you know, even the nightclubs we would go to, oh God, what were the names? Well, there was this one called Nocturne down in Philly where Shampoo nightclub was. They have big 80s room, there's a goth room, an industrial room, everybody wearing black and trying to outdo each other. You know what I mean? We had, first off, you would go to those things and everybody was free to do whatever you want. You know, girls would go there with like electrical tape and fishnets. You know, that would be their shirt.
See,
you know what
that's
I mean?
The stuff I feel like I definitely missed out on.
Yeah. There were like people showing up in like masquerade things and, you know, but like you would meet like since everybody was so open there, you would meet a lot of wackadoo people there as well. And like for example, there would always be like the old guy at the club, like a little too old to be at the club, just like hanging out, like staring at people. He was He was weird. He was weird, dude. And then there was the owner of the club, this guy Patrick, who was like his 40-year-old man who was like just hitting on like 18 and 19-year-olds.
Sure.
You know, and like dude was like he was a millionaire plus. He had the club, so he could get away with anything. And like, every week he had a different girl. You know, and let's see, everybody knew the DJ. The DJ was called DJ Knobhead. He was a nice dude. You know, and let me think. Then there was a bunch of other clubs. And what was actually kind of cool is because the scene wasn't huge, when bands would come from from all over the world, from Germany, whatever, they would be at these small little venues. Like I think it was like the Trocadero was one. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that still exists.
They just closed.
Yeah, so it would be like these venues with like 300-400 people, and after the show, you always get to meet with the artist. You know, everybody gets to hang out. Lots of times, as a group, we would go down to South Street Diner. You know, and just kind of like sit back, chill, and talk. Like I remember, like one of the guys, he's a professor now somewhere in like New York City. This kid Rowan, and I remember one night I sat down and I tried to talk to him about what quantum physics meant to me for 4.5 hours back when I was like 19 years old. I don't know shit about that, you know, but I know how to bullshit. Like I'll talk to you about it. What subject are we talking about? I'll talk to you about it. You know what I mean? But like we would sit back and we talk weird things, you know. But it would be fun because it didn't matter because you're the free kid anyway. Nobody's gonna listen to you that's in the mainstream. Now, with that being said, you know, like I think that we all kind of grew out of that. Almost everyone I knew that was in it is not in it anymore, right? I mean, I still listen to the same music. I love it, you know. Both of my daughters listen to it, you know, on their own, which is crazy, you know.
What kind of music are we talking? What were you listening to as a teenager?
Oh, I would listen to goth, industrial, metal. Industrial would be my big one, right? So industrial is kind of like, how do you explain it? It's like electronic music where people are banging on metal. It's a lot of that. Like it sounds like that. It's kind of cool. Like if you want to check it out, I recommend everybody. A real good one is V as in Victor, N as in November, V as in Victor, Nation. Look up V&V Nation. Amazing band, amazing guys. I've met them a bunch of times, right? Let's see. Bands like Funker Vot. The more German sounding, the better. You know?
And this is what you were listening to as a kid.
Yeah. Stuff that makes you want to punch something. You know what I mean? Like you listen to it and you have no idea what they're saying, you know, because it's all it would be, you know, it would be like that band Rammstein, right? But
yeah.
Rammstein was bullshit. But like the music would be similar to something like that.
Okay.
You know, and then there would be more sensual versions of that, like bands like Wolfsheim or Forgiving Iris or, oh God, what are the other ones? Oh my God. I think that the line is starting to kick in actually a little bit because I can't remember. Assemblage 23. Yeah, it's a lot of them. Lots of them. So I never listened to the radio. That was another thing too. Mm-hmm. People always talking about sports and music. And you know, my favorite band is Britney Spears. And I'm like, I'll be honest with you, I don't even know who the fuck that is. You know?
That's me now. That's how I am now. Like I famously have never really heard. I don't think I've heard more than 2 Taylor Swift songs.
Yeah.
And I still haven't listened to Adele. There's a lot of artists out there that like, unless they get like, I don't watch regular TV, so I don't see commercials. I don't listen to terrestrial radio, so I don't hear songs like on top 40 stuff. Like unless it's in a TV show.
Yeah.
You know, that's like the only, you know what I really fell in love with was Casey Musgraves. And I don't even know, she's a pop country singer. And I think she won a bunch of Grammys 2 years ago. Yeah. Now I didn't even know it until I did a rewatch of this show. But the reason I know her is from the show Yellowstone with Kevin Costner. It's about a show on ranchers. But there's like it's a sex scene that's on the show. It's on Paramount Network. There's a sex scene where her music is playing during the sex scene. And I subconsciously was like, oh, I love that song. And I got that album. And I didn't know it until about 6 months ago, sometime during the quarantine, I was rewatching. And I'm like, oh my God, Space Cowboy. This is my fucking jam. This is why I know it. But there was no other way I was ever going to come across that song, that artist, that album. Without that one instant. Otherwise, I would have never known about this multi-time Grammy-winning artist.
Yeah. Well, think about what we were talking about earlier. about the word connections, right? You know, like in very important moments in our life, you know, whether there's music or smells or whatever, our brain connects with that, you know, and it puts it in this like this hierarchy of, oh, that had a cool thing attached to it. You know, I saw some really amazing titties when I listened to that song. You know
I gotta tell you, Mike, dude, Mike, when I was watching it, so I was doing this rewatch with a girl, and my face, like I would, like all the thoughts going through my mind when I realized that I transferred this album and this artist that I now love, who I don't know what she looks like. I just know the voice and the music that I love. And when I realized I got it from a sex scene in a Kevin Costner TV show, like the shame on my face when I go, oh my God. She goes, don't you love this song? I was like, yeah. Oh my God. I didn't.
Don't be ashamed. Somebody was doing their art and you appreciated it. All right.
It's just funny how easily
as artists we want you to appreciate.
It's just funny how easily I played into it.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens, man.
So you got expelled in ninth grade. And we don't need to go into like details.
Yeah.
But if you know the story, you maybe know the story. If you heard the rumors, maybe you heard rumors. But
tell you what, if anybody wants to know, they can just come ask, and I'll tell them.
Perfect.
You know?
Perfect.
Because I got nothing to hide, but I would rather just talk to people one-on-one about that. You know.
Perfect. Yeah. So when you get expelled in ninth grade, you know, you already had a problem connecting with people, and now you're getting removed from the school district, which we've all kind of talked about. You know, it's very small. You know, everybody from, you know, especially from Shady Grove, you know, probably 60% of the school from the time you were in elementary school. What's that like now to get removed out of that environment? Which
this is what's weird about it. Years later, people remember the bad things. You know what I mean? They don't remember the good things, which kind of sucks. And then what happens too is that like, later on in life, you get an opportunity to be like, hey, that wasn't me, but the stigma still stays. You know what I mean? For example, I'm a Buddhist now, right? I like to help people, right? I've donated thousands of dollars to charities every single Christmas. For an orphanage in Africa, I buy them blankets, or I buy them nets, or I try to help them out, you know, pay for malaria treatments or whatever. You know, I do stuff like that. And I want people to kind of, well, to be honest with you, the more I think about it, like right now, as I'm talking about it, I don't care how people think about me. I really don't. If you want to stick with Mike from back in the day, Freak Mike, you want to remember me as that, you can. You know, if you want to look at me for who I am now, you can. At the end of the day, I am who I am, and I'm a person. I ain't perfect, you know. And beyond that too, I know that I've made mistakes, and I will do what I can to try to make up for it, whatever that means. You know, even if it's years and years later, I don't mind helping people. You know. So
what about in that moment when you get pulled out and you go to Wyncote? What's the perception? How do you perceive people receiving you? Do they know really about who you are?
I just made new friends with new people, and at Wyncote, everybody had quote unquote problems where they were either asked to leave from a school or whatever. And it was a school where it was kind of like a hippie commune. There was 80 kids in the entire school, and the school went from 6th grade to 12th grade, right? So there's about 8 kids per grade. And there was, so the teachers get to know you very, very intimately. You know what I mean? And while you're going there, they would give you scholarships to be able to go to college and do things. So like my senior year there, you know, when I was at school, on the weekends, they paid for me to take classes over at Tyler School of Art, you know, to try to help me with that a little bit, you know, which was kind of cool, you know. And in addition to that, one of my teachers actually hired me to help him out with art projects, you know, later on as well. So, I mean, like that place was kind of cool, but again, you know, nobody ever picked up the fact that I was dyslexic. So my grades sucked, and school to me was just like the most like pulling teeth kind of thing. I hated it, man. I hated going. I thought it was a waste of time, everything. I would rather just hang out with my friends, try to have some fun, right? I didn't care about a future. I didn't know if I was going to have a future, Brad. I didn't know if I was going to make it past 18. A lot of friends of mine didn't. It's crazy. In my, I think my senior class, I think a couple people have died, even from that school, you know? So we didn't know what was going to happen. And, you know, at some point you have to make the decision, hey, I want to live, you know? And that didn't happen really for me until after the military.
You've mentioned like a couple, you've mentioned like kind of like some post-school stuff, namely the Army. Usually when I go through this and we're going into high school, I ask people, was there anything that you thought you wanted to do as you were coming up like through school?
No, I didn't know. I didn't know what 2 weeks were going to bring. My mother left me in the fucking city. Like my life was not.
But your dad,
there was no future, Brad.
But your dad,
that.
Your dad was a successful doctor. You said.
That's true. Yeah.
Was there any, a lot of times people are kind of like raised with, regardless of what their personal, I don't know.
When you want to go into medical field or whatever.
Yeah. Or just like people are raised with like the idea of like these kind of like these stoic musts. In life, right? Must go to when you grow up, you're going to school and middle school and high school, and then you go to college, and then you get a job and you start a family. And at that age, as a teenager, was there any expectation or ingrained pressure of, well, of course I'm supposed to go to college? You may not know what the fuck you're supposed to be doing or how you get there, but was there any thought of, I'm supposed to be getting ready to go to college?
No, there was definitely I need to be in the medical field. I have to. I mean, my dad named me after his profession. So he's a medical doctor. My initials are MD Volpicelli. Medical. See what I mean? See what he did? Fucking clever bastard, huh?
And what were your feelings towards that?
Yeah. So what happened is that he, like I said, he named me after his profession. I went to school for nursing after I got out of the military. I thought it was going to be awesome, and then I got a job at LA Fitness. And I became one of their general managers over at, I think it was like, I want to say like Hatfield or something, some town over there starts with an H. Horsham, might have been Horsham LA Fitness, one of the LA Fitnesses. And I was working there. I hurt my back. I sued them. I made $130,000. It was awesome. And then, but here's the problem. I had a kid. So I didn't see 130,000. It's all 75, Anyway, you see, that's what happened. When people say, "Oh, I missed out when I was in high school. I didn't go to parties." You know what those parties get you? They get you a kid, And hey, if you make it out of high school without a kid, right?
So when did you? So when did you have a kid?
I had one. Oh, well, I mean, she's 12 years old now. So it was probably right out of the military. So it was many years ago. It was 2006, now with that being said, when I was in high school, I had a lot of scares. Oh shit. So we were not doing the right thing, Brad. So I regret that.
So you were dating, like you were dating in high school, even when you went to Wyncote. I
wasn't dating anybody. No,
you were having sex and relationships with people. I mean, you talked about how you talked about having an inability to connect. So you have to connect to have sex.
No, you don't. No, you don't. What you need to do, you don't connect. What it is it's an exciting thing, right? You have an exciting encounter with a person, and if they say yes, then you do your thing. One night stands don't mean you have a connection. It just means that you both had an urge, you had an impulse, right? Yeah, I'm very, very manic, right? So I'm the type of person where if something comes up, my answer would be, okay, let's do it. Let's give it a shot. Let's try. I'm not a person that really thinks about the content. I was talking to a friend of mine actually the other day. He's about 2 years older than us. He's a millionaire. He is a high exec at some business. And he's like, Mike, you know the differences between me and you? One is I research a decision before I make it. You just do it, And usually part of the way that I research a decision is I give you a call and I ask, how did it go? And and like I'll be like, man, I fucked up, or man, that was cool, And so that was a lot of high school for me, man. So like I said, I didn't have meaningful connection. I didn't have like a close personal friend that I could go and talk to all my problems. You know what I mean? I had these like little parties where we get drunk, we would do stupid shit, and we wouldn't really bother with the consequences. And I think that before I left high school, I had like 4 big scares.
Wow,
Or potential.
that's wild.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially when you're not phrasing it in like in a relationship or girlfriend type of thing. It's just kind of like,
yeah. I mean, when that happens, you're like, all right, my life's over. You know, I have no idea how to be a dad. I have no idea how to take responsibility for anything. You know what I mean?
Did you work at all in high school? Or
I was a stonemason during the summer. I worked with my grandfather building houses. And then
wait. You built houses as a stonemason?
Stonemason. So when you go around to houses and you see the stone on the front of the houses, we built that. You know, in front of William Penn Inn, they have those little piers, the short little piers. I built one of them. I built churches. I built patios. I built walkways. I built all kinds of shit.
And you're doing this as a teenager?
I was doing that from the age of, I think, like 14 or 15. You know, like I didn't go to summer camp. I went to work. And then like, and like when I was with my grandfather, he was a very, very quiet man. He never talked. Right. And because of that, we never talked at the job site. It was just, hey, do your job. Right. You know, like, hurry up. You're slowing me down. Hurry up. Bring me the stone. Hurry up. Set the stone. Hurry up. Dress the stone. Hurry up. I need more cement. What are you doing? Get the sand off the truck. Get the other thing off the truck. Mike, bring the fucking truck. I don't have a license, Grandpa. I don't give a fuck. I'm at the wall. If I leave the wall's going to fall down and we're going to lose a day of work. Bring the truck over here.
Can I ask you? Can I ask you?
I keep going, man.
Is that a better relationship though than you had with your dad?
My son is named after my grandfather. Literally has the exact same name. Right?
So even though he was,
my grandfather's name Dominic Joseph Volpicelli, my son's name is Dominic John Joseph Volpicelli. So DJ squared. But yeah, I mean, it was the best relationship as far as a parental figure I ever had, even though we never talked.
I was going to say,
because a couple times when I was a kid, he gave me a fucking hug. The moral of the story, you got kids, give them a fucking hug. Spend some time with them. Build a connection with them. Ask them how they're feeling. Ask them how they're doing. Take time, listen to the music that they're listening to with them, and then see what resonates with them. Have a real connection with them, right? You do that, I swear to God, like that's all your kids need. Your kids don't need the highest degrees. What they need is love. Right? Take a minute to just share love with them. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That's my grandfather showed me that he loved me. He cared about me because when bad things would happen, he would fight for me, but he never talked with me, but that's okay. Like it is what it is, I guess. I don't know.
So then,
go ahead.
So what did you, you're doing manual labor in the summer and
then during the school year, I worked at Suncoast Video and, we would
at
just
the mall.
watch movies. Yeah, at the mall actually. And what's funny is like I remember I got in trouble because one of my favorite bands is this band called Enya, and they have this song, "The Principle of Lust," right? Yeah. And they had a DVD that had music videos of all their songs. Yeah. Right. So one night I was working like near the end. The boss had to leave for some reason, so I put that on. And at Suncoast Video, they got the TV screens everywhere throughout the store. Plus they had the 3 on the outside going into the mall. So everybody's watching this video where these people are getting all sensual and there's a lot of nudity and everything. And I'm just sitting there behind the screen. I'm like, yeah, I like this, And I didn't think anything of it. And then this woman comes in and she's like, what are you doing having this like softcore porn on your thing? I'm like, hey, yo, get out. Don't you ever talk to me like that again, So
what did you go to Monco for? I mean,
I went to All right. So I went to Monco for art, right? Because I didn't know what the hell I wanted. So I just took a whole bunch of classes at first, right? To just figure it out. And even after 2.5 years of doing that, I had no idea, no clue. At the end of those 2.5 years, that's when my grandfather passed away, right? And at that point, I was thinking about his life and what made him special to me. And I was thinking, okay, well, that's the type of person I want to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and model some of my life after him. So what did he do different than me? Right? Well, he joined the military. So maybe that's what I need to do, And I didn't want to kill people. I didn't want to shoot people with guns. That entire thing scared me like beyond belief. Just just the fact of like being around people where it's like, oh, it's okay to completely kill somebody and end their life. That was fucking scary to me, you know? So I wanted to be around people that were trying to save lives, you know? And that's why I took the job as medic. And that was scary too. That was crazy. But like the training of that was just like the most intense, insane thing I've ever gone through in my life.
How
you know?
so?
Like, go ahead.
How so?
Oh, so like, so in the military, right? When you're going to learn a new skill, like how to give somebody an IV or something, right? What they do is they say, here's the stuff that you're going to use, right? Now turn to the left. That's who you're going to be practicing on, right? And it's like, okay, well, you've never given us a needle before. We have no idea what we're doing.
Wow.
And then they're like, okay, you, private, come here. And then they would demonstrate it once, and they're like, okay, pay attention. This is how you do it. They show you once. Now turn to the left, right? And then after you get a chance to fuck up them and their arm, right? They get a chance to fuck you up in return. And so I sat next to a girl who did not like me. And she turned my arm into freaking Swiss cheese. And I'll be honest with you, I am terrified of needles. And when she stuck me the second time, I remember I passed out in the middle of the class. And here's the deal. You pass out, you know what happens? You become the training tool because you're the one that's difficult to work with. And if they can stick you, they can stick anybody, right? So we would go out to the field, right? When we're out like doing our FTX, right? And we would practice mass casualty situations, and they would be playing this like crazy music, like this Arabian stuff to kind of like scare you. They would have sounds of like babies screaming and women crying and all this kind of stuff.
Wow.
And they would have like these like laser lights going over you, just making it feel like you're in a war setting. And they're like, they would make it super loud too, so you'd have to scream at people. So they would say, okay, you just got, hurt, and you have a card in your little pocket and pull it out. That's your injury. And then the medic has to run over, treat you, give you an IV and get you off the field, and like, I remember like it would be pitch black at night, people trying to stick me. And that sucked, man, because if you do get a vein and you don't hold the thing down right, blood just shoots out, right? And that's crazy. And the people that I'm going there with, they're 17, 18-year-old kids.
Yeah.
Like, that's not like an ideal. Like, if you go to a hospital today and a 17-year-old kid comes over and says, I'm going to be the one doing your phlebotomy today, you say, no, go get your supervisor now. Okay. Now, I understand that it might be bring your son to work day or bring your daughter to work, but get the fuck out. There's something called HIPAA. You don't deserve to be here. But in the military, it's completely normal for that to happen. And then every single day, they would have us watch videos and see pictures of people getting their heads cut off, from terrorists, all kinds of injuries that people were suffering from to desensitize us from that kind of shit. And I just remember all it used to do was just like traumatize me, man. It was scary, and let's see. So, yeah, I mean, they would tell you that the average lifespan of a medic on the field is 6 seconds. That's another thing too. So when you actually do get in there and everything, unless you're super confident and you're like one of these guys who are like, nothing can hurt me, you're terrified, man. Like, it's traumatic.
How long were you there? 2 years? Is that what you said?
I was in the military for about a little bit. I would say a little bit less than 2 years. I made it through all my training. I did a year at my unit. And, at that point in time, I left on a medical discharge. I was suffering from PTSD. From stuff that happened during training, as well as some stuff that happened before the military. I got my honorable discharge. And like I said, I got my commander's coins. I got to do some art while I was in there, and that was my experience. I worked at Madigan Army Medical Center in a burn unit, in a telemetry ward, and in, I think just doing like general stuff, like aid station stuff. I'm no fucking hero. Let's put it that way. There's people in the military that have done a lot more shit than I did in the military and deserve to be, we respect you for your military service. Don't respect me for my military service because I didn't do shit.
First of all, where are you stationed when you're in the Army? You're all over the world, right?
I was stationed at Fort Sam and I was stationed at Fort Lewis. So I was in the middle of Oklahoma where there's nothing. Right. I was at Fort Sam, which is right outside of San Antonio, which is one of my favorite places on the planet. Right. I love that place. And then I was stationed at Fort Lewis in Washington, where I never saw the sun, and it never got over 60 degrees. And it was the most depressing thing you ever see in your life. Lewis Black has a joke about Seattle, right? And it's like Seattle has the highest suicide rate because every single day is raining and cold and gray. Right. So eventually people get so sick of seeing rain and cold and gray that in order to see some fucking color, they start jabbing at their wrist. Right. You know? And so like I can understand after living there, like, yeah, no, that's funny. That's pretty accurate. You know, like it's cold. It's a horrible place in my opinion. You know, I'm sure that people are going to give you hate for me saying this. They're going to give me hate for a lot of shit that I'm saying.
I don't know if I have a huge Washington base on for the podcast. I think.
Yeah. So
I got two friends I think that are out there that maybe listen to this podcast in Washington, and
well, I hope that they leave, but hope that they can get out and return to the human race.
Come back to us.
Yeah, come back. Come back, come home.
So where do you leave? So where do you go then? Once you leave the Army, where do you go? Like literally, where do you go to live?
Go live with my father. Things started to get a little bit better. He finally left my mother, and he was dating this woman named Debbie, and she was cool. And I got along with Debbie. I liked Debbie. She was a good person. And then I remember things didn't work out very well with my father. I ended up moving in with my grandmother. You know, for a while I lived there for a couple of years again, and then I think I ended up moving back in with my father. But anyway,
and this is all.
I went to Monaco for nursing, and then at that time I had to pay for all of my own school. I didn't. You gotta understand, I'm stupid, right? So I didn't use my Montgomery GI, right, to pay for any of my school. I paid for it out of pocket, and Monaco is not expensive. It's $300 credit. You know, you can make that no problem. I make that in the first 20 minutes of the day.
Yeah, but you're coming back with no plan. Like you have no idea what you're going to be doing for working. So when you say $300 per credit, you're working 3 jobs to live. Like you don't have a path. And at this point now it's what 2000.
You do start to have a path at this point. And what I mean by that is like I don't know where I'm going to end up. I don't know what I'm going to love. I don't know whatever, but I know that I need an education. You know what I mean? I need that.
But you had been to Monaco once.
From the military. I like I said, I was working 3 jobs. I think I was only taking like 2 or 3 classes at a time, right? And I'm thinking, like I said, I go to school for nursing. I got this medical thing, the medic thing. You know, it should be easy, and a lot of the classes were super easy, which would have been super hard. Like the human anatomy classes, the chemistry classes. You know, I had those down. Like I was good at those. At that time, like I said, I was working multiple jobs, and I got a job at LA Fitness as a sales rep to start. And then I moved from sales rep to personal trainer because I sucked at sales rep. I don't know if you see a theme here, but I suck at a lot of jobs that you put me in. Anyway, I was really good though. You know what? I'll tell you what, that job taught me how to deal with like how to do sales. And when I got good at sales, I started coming out of my shell, right? Well, back then, I was nobody. And I stopped wearing the black and I started showing off the guns. You know what I mean? Like I started flirting a lot. Like don't tell the wife. And then I met a lot of ladies. You know what I mean?
She might watch this thing. She might watch or listen to this thing.
Oh, I hope not. I didn't do this with you. I'm on somebody else's podcast, for sure or another. I'm kidding. She's probably in the other room, like listening to me right now. Right. She's sitting there like, oh, I can't wait for him. You know, I can't wait for him.
You're poking Jamie Rosen, huh?
Oh God, that's funny. But, what was I saying? So yeah,
you were showing off the guns. Well, I was gonna. So you're able to make a connection. I mean, sales is about connections.
Sort of. Sales is about tricking somebody into thinking that they want something that they don't. That's LA Fitness. So for example, they'll be like, okay, make sure that you ask leading questions. Make sure you get them to say yes at least 7 times, you know, in a row before you bring them back to the table. All this like psychological stuff. Make sure that you show them one price, but make sure that you're willing to drop down to another price, you know, and tell them it's a special deal. Right. You know, tell them that you're going to call the manager, but you're not calling the manager. You know, tell them that you are the manager. You know what I mean? Like all that shit, you know? So like they tell you all these different things. and I started getting good at it. I hate to say,
Yeah.
and I didn't give a fuck. I didn't connect with anybody anyway. So I'm just trying to make some money, So anyway, I went from doing personal training sales to being the general manager because I got the top numbers on the East Coast. I started having just fun with it. Like I remember I would go to the mall on my breaks where we're supposed to pass out these little cards. And I would go and I would take these little like questionnaire things. Like you remember they would do their market research and they would bring you back to a room. I don't know. Maybe they didn't do it. Maybe it was just me. Anyway, I would go back. I give them a fake name. I tell them, oh, my name is, Steve, and I would just lie on everything. Right. And I would always get their information at the end of it. Right. And I would always get phone numbers and I'd always get callbacks. And I remember I would go to, and this was my secret, right? I'd go to insurance companies that were just hiring brand new people. And I would tell them I'm so into signing up for the new Roth IRA plan, which is a few $100, commission for them.
Yeah.
So I would bring them over. I'd be like, yeah, I'm so excited. I'm going to do it. But first, would you like to get this gym membership? Man, I'm so excited. I'm so happy to know you, right? I tell you what, I know the manager, man. I'll hook you up, right? And it's like I was telling you. And I would get these guys, and they would sign up for these huge things, and they're thinking they're getting this huge commission. I'd never call them back.
Right.
Steve would never call them back. You know what I mean? My alias. So
that's so good. So when you talk,
I did awesome doing that, and I get them.
When you talk about this, it's just your whole tone and excitement is so different than just the way that you talk about these experiences is so different than the first half of your life that you talked about. What changed with you? It seems like you were a happier person or a more peaceful. What changed when you came back from the Army?
I think that's a good question. I don't know. I'll have to think
Do you see
about
it? Do you see how animated you are
Yeah.
about this part of your life?
Yeah.
Versus, and you just seem happier, but I'm just curious because it doesn't seem like anything dramatic outside of you're not home.
Well, I mean, that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
I think it was.
Did you grow up more in the Army? It didn't seem like anything profound happened to you in the Army that changed your life in a positive way. So I'm so curious what.
Well, it's sort of. I came back more disciplined for sure. Right. And anybody that knows me as a person now compared to then will tell you that it's a different personality, and I don't know what that necessarily is. And that's a really good question. And maybe I need to think about that, because I never really thought about that before. I think it was just, I don't know, Brad, that's a good question.
Can I ask you this? What was your drug involvement at that point when you came back?
Nothing. I was straight edge.
Was that?
I would go when I first got back. I would try to hang out with certain people who like to go out drinking, but I got to a point where I stopped drinking completely. To be honest with you, I really don't even drink. I'm drinking with you tonight because this is fun, and I wanted to make sure that I was loose enough with it. Yeah, absolutely. Cheers.
Cheers, brother.
Cheers, brother. And I wanted to be able to make sure that it wouldn't be nerve-wracking. You gotta understand. After I did the art thing when I'm my sophomore year in college, right? I did interviews with people all over the place, right? I've done, like I said, Steve Harvey. I've met celebrities. I've done work for, all kinds of really interesting people, literally all over the world, right? And I feel like it just changed me, man. I feel like I started to feel like I had a purpose, or there was meaning or something. Before there was no meaning, and it was sad. And the reason being is I remember being super depressed at that time, all the time, man. Mm-hmm. I would go to bed at night and I couldn't fucking sleep because I'd have these fucking things in my head just saying horrible shit to me. You know what I mean? Was
that the drugs?
No, that's just not feeling a connection to anybody. Do you know why people do drugs? Because I worked at a drug rehab.
No,
because they feel no connection to anybody or anything, and it's so fucking painful for them. They want to find something to turn the pain off.
Right.
Go ahead.
I guess that's what I was wondering was, were you ignoring your issues because you were doing the drugs and the partying and the drinking? Were you ignoring your issues as a youth?
No. You're not ignoring them. You're doing what you can to solve the problem. You don't have all of the tools. You don't have any of the knowledge. You don't have any of like the things unless somebody presents it to you. All you have is what's directly in front of you, right? If you talk to a 15-year-old kid or a 12-year-old kid or whatever, and you ask them how they're going to deal with an anxiety attack while they're having it, their thing is always run away, you know?
Isn't that ignoring?
No, it's not ignoring, because that's a coping mechanism. You're trying to turn it off. You're not necessarily ignoring. Ignoring is when that becomes a pattern. You understand? When you run away, you can get through it. And sometimes people can then go solve it, right? After they get through that initial attack. Go ahead.
When you say run away, the understanding in that phrasing is that there is the option to come back to it.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
Okay.
Running away in that situation is to escape the pain, right? But like, what do you do as a kid to do that if you don't have the tools, the knowledge,
drugs,
or the counselor? You find a substance that literally solves all of your problems, which is, how can I feel something again? How can I be happy? Where do I find joy, right? You get a joint. It solves all of your problems. It really does, right? At least, because that's why it's like really hard to tell kids, hey, stop doing pot. Well, that's the only time I feel good. So fuck you. You know, I remember when I worked at a drug rehab, and there was this guy who would buy poppy seeds over the internet and then boil them in a pot and make this like heroin tea, right? And that's what he would do. That was his drug. So that was his opiate. And I'd say, well, why don't you try something else? Why don't you stop? And he said, well, this is where this takes my pain away. Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't feel the pain in my back or in my neck or whatever when I drink my tea, right? This literally solves it all. I don't have to feel like I'm a disappointment or embarrassment or blah, 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 whatever the nasty thought is in their head, you know? Now, what happens is when that becomes like a habit, like the default thing, then that's when that becomes a toxic behavior. All people run away from something that gets too intense, right? But it's when you do that all the time with every issue, does it become a dis-ease, not at ease. You know, your life is not at ease. If you can find a way to remove yourself from the situation, come back, solve your problem, okay, I mean, that's still healthy. Because when you don't, right, if you don't run away, maybe it is too intense. Maybe you are feeling too much fight or flight. And at that point, are you going to make a good decision? Probably not. I mean, all people think like this, and this is so true. And think about this, because this will make sense. All people first respond when they deal with an issue with dealing with the emotional brain. The emotional brain feels something, and immediately thoughts pop into your head. They're not rational, right? They're just, I have a feeling, and I need to act on that now, right? Then what happens is when that starts to die down, the rational brain has an opportunity to take over and start thinking, okay, here's some consequences, so maybe you don't want to do that. Or maybe this will happen and this will happen. So then you start to think about an issue, and you start rationalizing it. But that's still not the end, still not the highest brain level. Then there's the intellectual brain that will look at statistics and math and measurement, right? But that doesn't happen till way later. Now, with that being said, all people hit that emotional place first, right? And whenever you respond using just that emotional decision-making, right, it's not rational, it's not logical. So how likely is it to be right, you know, and to be the correct answer for solving your problem?
That's so funny.
Actually, probably like not at all, you know? My wife is very, very logical. I'm very, very emotional. You know, that's one of the reasons I think we get along so well, to be honest with you, because we balance each other out, you know? You know, like it's great. Like I'm lucky to have her. Like I truly am.
How did you meet her?
When I was a personal trainer, or not a personal, when I was a general manager of the gym, right? I was at Huntington Valley. I was assistant general manager at the time, right? I have to get that right. One of my trainers, it was her best friend. And this is a funny story, right? So we were going to go out to do a blind date, right? She was going to set us up on a blind date, one of my trainers. And I remember I had just worked about like 14 hours that day. Like that's the reason why I stopped doing all the other jobs. I was making nurses money, working as a GM, and I was doing good. I was thinking I just keep doing this. Anyway, so one of my trainers wanted me to meet somebody because she saw me working all the time and she thought I was a nice guy, right? So she wanted to do something nice, So I remember I came home from work. I lied down in my bed. I fell asleep. I was 2.5 hours late to this blind date, right? And as soon as I got there, I spilled a beer on her. I went to go sit down. I knocked it over. I'm like, oh, fuck. It's not going to work out, right? And I'm looking at her. I'm like, oh, she's gorgeous. She's beautiful, right? And so, like, I try to talk to her, and I try to just, like, connect with her as much as I could. And she's laughing at my stupid jokes and she's acting a little coy. And, like I said, I spilled a beer on her. I remember I went to the bathroom. I came out, the toilet paper was stuck to my foot, Brad. Holy Christ.
You checked off all the boxes.
Wait a minute. Have you ever worried about a bad date, right? Remember Mike, right? Mike spilled a beer on her.
You checked off all the boxes.
The fucking thing with the toilet
bad
paper.
Dates.
And then I knocked the fucking chair over when we went to leave. Right?
So you're late.
Did everything you could do wrong.
Yeah, you're late. You're late. You spill the beer.
Yeah.
You walk back out with toilet paper. You trip over a fucking chair.
Oh my God.
Like you did all the things.
You know what I did? I did bad date bingo. Okay. It was. It was
I mean, this is like, R.I.P. to Screech.
Yeah.
But like to Dustin Diamond, this is like Screech on a date.
I'm not even done. I invited her back to the house. I tried to make stir fry. We didn't get to eat it. Burned.
Set the house on fire.
Well, it just charred, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, like we didn't get back to that. Like I said, I'm a passionate person, Brad. Anyway.
Oh, I got you.
We'll get into the rest because if she does listen.
Yeah, I got you.
But yeah, like, wow, that was, what else? Oh, after we.
What's her name?
Did that. Oh, her name is Kristen, right? After we did that, you know what I told her? I said, Kristen, I think I might marry you, right? I think I might love you.
What was her reaction to that?
She said to me was, okay. And then get this, right? We parted ways. You know how dates end, right? And it wasn't parted ways. It was like, I think like 6 o'clock in the morning. I forgot to get her phone number. and then when I did get her number, like her friends and I, the trainer that was a friend of mine, like we didn't call each other for like 3 or 4 days, and I had to get a number from her. I was texting. She wasn't getting any of my texts. She was texting me, not getting any of my texts. So she thought I played her.
Yeah.
Right? And then she found out I didn't. And I remember I called her up. I'm like, hey, when we finally were able to connect again, I was like, hey, I told you I love you. Like, before we do that, can I just like ask you, would it be okay if me and you were just like a thing a little bit first?
Yeah.
And instead of me saying I love you, can I just say like I cheese sandwich you for now? Or just something,
slow it down.
Easy. Yeah, slow it down.
So it's a great.
I recognize I fucked that up, and she's like, don't worry about it. It's fine. She laughed at me, and I knew at this point, okay, finally somebody who's going to let me be myself a little bit. Now, with that being said, no relationship's perfect, right? No relationship's perfect. And we've had moments of big ups, big downs. But at the same point in time, at the end of the day, we can be ourselves. And that's the only thing that matters, Like my wife is 6 years younger than me. I did pretty good, I'm happy, man, so that's kind of like what matters. If that makes sense. Like, and you don't get that necessarily from like, you just get that from having a connection. Nothing else matters.
Nothing else
matters.
It sounds like you didn't have any experience prior to that of like a positive, when I asked you about like your past relationships, it's like, and I kind of categorize it as like, were you dating? You're like, it wasn't dating.
No. And
then clearly like just inexperience, right? From that first, like I
was very experienced with,
but from a dating,
but
What's
I
that?
was not experienced with having real good intimate relationships where
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, what was that like when you're, because this, I'm assuming now this is like the first girl, and it shows, right?
Yeah.
You say, I love you, I want to marry you.
well, there was 3 girls I had close relationships with. This girl, Crystal, who's still a best friend of mine. Another one named Monique, who was actually she was a porn star.
Sweet. Awesome.
And she lives up on New York City. She lives somewhere in Philly now. And then there was another one. I think her name was like Melissa, where it was like we had really intense relationships where there was lots of feelings. Oh, and then there was Liz, the girl who killed herself. It was my first girlfriend ever, you know, where we had really intense relationships. But I don't know if you would call them healthy, because they became relationships of codependence, where I was dependent on them for like everything. I was like leaning on them too much.
Was Kristen just that better of a, I don't want to say better, but the right combination with you to help you work through? I would just feel like there's a lot of,
you know what helped me a lot? Being with a girl from New York City who isn't afraid to tell me, hey, you're being an asshole right now.
Honesty.
Yeah. And
Honesty.
then at the end of it, you know, I was like, oh yeah. And then I took what I learned from that relationship and I applied it to the next one. And I just tried to be better, like a better person all around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like she deserves a good husband. You know what I mean? And I want to give that to her. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And and like, I don't want her to have to rely, or I don't want to have to rely on her, you know, for everything. I want to be able to help. I want to be a partner. You know what I mean? I want that because I want to have a connection with somebody who's just been there. Like, so when we think about connection too, this is important, right? Connection comes from people, like I said before, and who aren't the best, but people that have been there, who know your story. You know what I mean? Who have allowed you to be yourself.
Yeah.
When you think about your past, their name or their face keeps popping up over and over and over, right? You don't need to find the hottest big-titted woman. Trust me, those tits sag after a while, you know?
I need to hear these things. Well, let me ask you, you know, from not, you know, you've always been in art, but you didn't have any type of a path. And then you go into the Army and you kind of accidentally are allowed to do art for a little bit. And then you come out and you're working, but then you get back into art. And now you're doing these, you know, these works, and you've got people sharing them. And these aren't just, you know, these aren't the suburbanite bluebellians that you grew up with that go to the Giant, right? These are people that affect the world that are sharing your work around. What's that like for your psyche?
Oh, the first time it ever happened, I was so nervous. I went out for a walk and I just went, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. You know what I mean? And then when somebody bought an art piece from me for the first time for like $700, I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Like all I could think is, oh my God, I'm a fraud. I'm a fraud. They're going to find out I'm a fraud. I'm a fraud. And I'm like, but it's not though, because I do them all the time.
Isn't that interesting?
You know? Yeah. So
you don't
like,
think
I always felt like I was going to fail, or like somebody was going to be like, oh, you're a fraud. And you know what I mean? I was so afraid. I still am. To this day, I'm still planning for the day where I need to flip burgers for a living. You know what I mean? But like, that's the thing. It's like, after I do the word art, I do the paintings still sell, even though I suck at painting. You know, it's just somehow it's all working out, man. Isn't
that interesting though? Like how you think you're thinking fraud, which implies that people are going to think you don't belong to the standard of what you're holding, of what you think you're trying to get yourself to.
That's exactly right.
Yet people are buying your work, posting your work, and you still think you don't belong, even though you are already in there. You're already in the world. You're
exactly right. I think that all artists kind of do that, you know? It's hard. Like,
feels vain. It feels vain to think, oh, I'm going to kill them with this one. They're not going to be able to believe what I paint for them, or what this video that I make for them, or this pot. They're going to lose their fucking minds when they all hear.
Yeah.
It feels so, and maybe for people that have tried and failed, right? We've all tried. I'm sure we've all tried to make something for someone, and that person goes, "Hey, you didn't do it, dude. That ain't it." Right.
Yeah.
And so I almost hear those moments in my head, right? I've got those failures always in my head that I just go, let's not oversell this.
Yeah.
let's
Right.
just kind of.
I fucked that up a couple times recently. I for the first time ever, I had a woman tell me that she wasn't happy with her painting of her portrait. She paid half her deposit, which is fine, but she didn't want the thing, and that's never happened to me before. And that, I mean, I swear to God, that hurts, man. You feel that in your soul, But I mean, it happens, and I guess you just kind of have to. There's a quote. I love quotes, man. Some quotes that really stick in my head. One is, strength ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving. You know what I mean? And like, I took that hit, and what am I going to do? Just drop on the ground and cry about it? Or am I going to get back up and, keep going, And if she don't like it, she don't like it, and that's okay. I can move on. I can do things that bring back the fun for me, and that'll show in the art. And if it doesn't to anybody else, well, at the end of the day, I feel good. I still feel like I got something from it. I had fun. I had pleasure. I had joy. And I think that for some reason, maybe you don't feel the same, but for me, I feel like at our age, it's harder to find joy. It's much harder. Like when I look at my kids, my son yesterday, he has this little drone that he flies, and my son's only 3 years old. That thing goes off, and it starts flying around the thing. He's squealing. His arms are flailing. He's having a great time. When was the last time you or I did that for anything? You know what I mean? Anything at all.
Eagles parade.
What's that?
Eagles parade.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, my kids are like that, like once or twice a week. Like, why don't we feel that way anymore about anything?
Well, I have checks. I feel like I give myself mental checks and balances and emotional checks and balances of don't get too excited about this. Don't get too excited about that. Like, it's cool, but let's just see what's going to happen, right? Like,
what voice is that in your head? Is that your voice or is it somebody else's?
It's my voice. It's my voice of memories of things that have gone wrong in the past, or bad, or ways that I've perceived to look bad in the past, that I go, okay, let's take this in stride. Let's see. Like, I've got a lot of things that like have over the past, year or so have come up and have seemed very exciting. And some of them have played out exactly as I thought they would. Some of them have played out much smaller than I was told, promised that they would. Some have not played out in any way. Some completely disappeared.
Yeah.
And that's just in the last year. But as an artist, I've been going through that for the last 10, 15 years of my life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Before I went to WWE,
yeah.
I had sold some scripts to this upstart production company that wanted to hire me to start doing sketch comedy based off of these skits that I had written. And I was super, super excited about it. Then I got the job for WWE. I mean, within like 15 to 20 days of them, of us discussing price and a filming schedule, within 15 days, I get offered this job where I have to move now to Stamford, Connecticut. So obviously I take that job and I move to Stamford, Connecticut, and I start working for WWE, and I do that for a year and a half. By the time I came back, that company that had offered to pay me pretty good sum for this work that I like put my heart and soul into on my own personal shit.
Yeah.
Was dead. It was gone.
Yeah. Wow.
Didn't even exist.
Wow. Yeah.
Right.
That sucks when as an artist, when you put your heart and soul into something, hours and hours and hours, your passion, everything, and then nothing happens from it, man. Yeah.
So
that's a hit.
but I had this, what seemed like a really, this thing prior to me going to WWE seemed like a really promising, like, oh my God, this is exactly it. It's local.
Yeah. This is like when an athlete blows their knee. You know what I mean? It's like an athlete blows their knee. They can't be an athlete anymore. When I got back from the military, I used to do triathlons, marathons, right? I used to do like Olympic weight training all the time. I broke my back, man. Like I get trouble walking sometimes. I'm in a lot of, and this Wednesday, I have to go in for a procedure on, like life changes. Life happens when you're making other plans.
Like,
know what I mean?
like tomorrow, Wednesday, or is today Monday?
Yeah,
It's
today
Monday.
was-
So
today
in
was
2
Monday.
days, you got to go in.
2 days. You asked me to do the show on Wednesday. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I'm going in for an operation. You know,
Wow.
so like I get it. Like I trust me, I get that. You know, life happens when you're making other plans. After I hurt my back, no more marathons, no more triathlons. You know, no more lifting heavy things. You know, so I lift light things,
Yeah.
and I do occlusion training, and it works. I still got arms. You know.
So that's
can
what's
still
so
be
funny is
intimidated.
I almost expected that I thought about when thinking about what to wear
Yeah.
for this podcast, you know, I almost thought like, should I put on a tank top? Because when I see you, you've been rocking the tank tops and I'm just like, yo, Mike looks kind of jacked.
Yeah,
That's what I've been noticing. I was like, yo, Mike's pretty like built.
Fat. Yeah, this is me fat, man. And before COVID, man, I was doing 65s. You know, I was doing good.
How did you find Buddhism?
It was actually I love music like yourself, right? I don't listen to anything on the radio. I found this band called Faithless many years ago, and they're actually a Buddhist. They're a Buddhist like techno band, which is like weird, and they're amazing music, amazing lyrics. And whenever I listened to their music, it felt like it was affecting me. Like I felt I could resonate with it. You know what I mean? Like certain songs, like you just feel and you get emotional with. And with their music, I got like that. And so I started to kind of like learn a little bit about it from there. And then after I got back from the military and I was doing that GM job and I had broken off a relationship with a porn star. And I was just, I don't know, I was in a weird emotional place. And from there, I met a doctor who was part of this SGI Buddhist group where there's like a bunch of people that get together, they chant together. I went with them one time and I felt very uncomfortable because there's a whole bunch of people chanting around me and I'm thinking that I just joined a fucking cult. Like, what is this? You know what I mean? Are we going to do virgin sacrifices next? You know, I hope I'm not I hope they don't think I'm the one.
Right.
They ain't going to call up any demons with me. Anyway. So I didn't like that, but like afterwards they would talk about like different things and I kind of liked that, you know, about how like Buddhism has been affecting them and everything. So I like that. And then I took a couple courses in college on Eastern philosophies, then Eastern art. And I'm like, this is kind of cool. And then I got invited to do this show in Japan, which is like one of the Buddhist capitals of the world, pretty much. Where they, so we went to go and check out the temples, and I felt at peace. Like the biggest peace I've ever felt in my life is at these temples. Then one thing that's kind of crazy is they have this giant temple in Japan. I think it's Toji Temple. It's either Toji or Todaji. It's Toji. It has this giant Buddha, and when you're walking up to the temple, like they have these like this big row of these different traditional and authentic Japanese stores, none of this tourist bullshit. And then right after that, you go onto the grounds of the temple, and then there's these deer that are like wild deer. They're not tame. They're not in cages. There's nothing about them that's like been touched by man, but they come over to people and they just like chill with you. You know, they'll put like their head, like their little deer head on your lap, and like they're like super friendly. And I remember we went there with my daughter, and I'm pushing her in her wheelchair, and she's eating Cheerios, right? And there's wild deer running around, and we have a trash bag attached to our stroller that had all of our food, like all of our lunch foods. The deer came over, he stuck his head right in our trash bag, right? And then we're like, okay, there's a deer in the trash bag. What do we do about this? Let's just let it go, right? Then he comes around, he sees my daughter eating Cheerios. And what do deers like to eat? Fucking Cheerios. So he just comes over and starts eating all of my daughter's Cheerios. She went from, oh my God, I'm super scared, to you're fucking with my Cheerios. Bop, right on the deer's face. The deer's, what? And like the deer was upset. So he went over, he grabbed our trash bag on the side of our stroller and just ran off with it, spreading trash all over Todaji's, grounds. So that's my story, right? I'm telling you, man, I have these moments that could be so wonderful, and they're just destroyed by my luck, but it's a fun story. So
They're great.
It's a true story too.
They sound like great animation shorts, to be honest.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it probably would be, but like I said, we went back, we went and we saw the giant Buddha, and we got to do our little thing in front of it, and it just felt cool.
Yeah.
And then I spent time learning more about it afterwards on like the great courses, and I tried to learn more from different teachers. And one thing that you'll learn about Buddhism that's different than like Christianity, because I don't know what your background is, right?
I'm Jewish.
Okay. So like a lot of like the Abrahamic religions are like, you got to be Jewish, you have to be Christian, or you have to be Muslim. In Buddhism, it's not that at all, right? And Buddhism, it's find peace. We're not going to write shit down. We'll give you people that might guide you, but at the end of the day, the journey's yours. And only by you doing the journey are you going to find the answers, right? And we're going to give you little pieces of guidance or whatever, but you don't have to accept any of them. It's a smorgasbord. It's like going to a buffet. Grab a little of this, grab a little of this, grab a little of this. You know what I mean? And like, if you want to be Buddhist only at the later half of your life, you can. And you could still be considered a full-blown Buddhist. If you want to be one for the first half, as well as a Confucianist, as well as a Christian, you can do that. A lot of the Buddhists that I practiced with in the beginning with the SGI group, they were also Jewish and also Christian, because Buddhism has nothing to do with you have to follow Buddha. It is how do you attain your Buddhahood, right? How do you try to see past your own, your own ego sometimes, just to take a moment to try to make your life better. You know what I mean? Because sometimes our ego gives us the wrong things. Because again, the ego is very emotional,
Help me wrap this thing up. We've been talking for like a while. This has been like an incredible, awesome,
it's good.
Eye-opening.
When you were going to do this with me, is this how you thought this was going to go with me?
Yeah,
because you remember me as the freak. I don't know if you still think of me that way.
I thought this would be. I didn't know if you had ever heard the podcast, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, I don't like know. Unless people specifically message me or they're consistent like on social media with like commenting or liking posts, I don't know if people are actually like listening or watching these podcasts. Yeah. So no, I didn't know if you really had listened to the podcast. So to be quite honest, that's why it was one of the first questions, because I was going to give you a little like rundown of how I tried to like run things. And all it was going to be was like, whatever we get into. Right. And I might try and steer back to some high school stuff. But so I thought this would be a little bit unconventional. And I've seen your art live, your live streams of doing art, and even going back to the very beginning when we had tried to do this maybe about 6 months ago in the summer. Yeah. And the schedules didn't work out. So like I kind of had an idea. I thought it'd be a little bit wild. I did think you'd be in a tank top, so I'm a little disappointed that you're in a full regular t-shirt.
Hey, yeah. That's the Florida uniform. That's what I tell people.
It's okay.
You're not allowed to have shirt with sleeves.
But no, this is I did think it.
I went running before I did this, and I came back and I was sweaty, so I took it off. But I had one on like literally 20 minutes before this. So
yeah. No, I did think it would be a little bit more. I thought I would have to wrangle you a bit, to be honest. Like I thought I would have to like maybe like wrangle you into stuff. But like I said, it's one of those things where I realized like in the very beginning of this podcast, as we were going, it's like, oh, you know what? I don't need to wrangle you. I need to just let this be what it's going to be.
Yeah.
I don't need to steer the conversation. Sure, get in some stuff where it fits, but I feel like where you were taking it, everywhere you're going, was interesting as fuck to me. Cool. And I was into diving deeper into it, regardless of trying to find just kind of empty high school type questions to ask you.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm glad that you're happy with it.
Oh yeah. One thing I do like to ask is like do you have anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to talk about, or anything you wanted to ask that you didn't get to ask? I know I ask a lot of questions. Sometimes people are like, I wanted to ask you blank, or I wanted to talk about this and we didn't get to do it. Was there anything that we left on the table you wanted to get into?
I want people to know I'm not the same person from high school. I mean, like, if they want to think of me as that, they can. Who cares? But I know that, like, how we started. It was like those were really rough years, man. They were rough years, and a lot of the stuff that I did, I really wish that I had better tools and better opportunities, but I just didn't.
Yeah.
And I think that at every moment, people do the best that they can. And I really just want, I just want people to know that if for any reason at any point that Mike ever hurt them, right, then I'm sorry, and I want to be able to reach out to them. And if anybody feels hurt, they can reach out to me, And as far as anybody who ever bullied me, I've had people recently who came over to me and was like, look, Mike, I want to apologize for X, Y, Z, whatever. I want them to know, hey, look, I have no hard feelings against people. I understand. People got to do what they got to do. We were all growing up. We were all kids, Yeah. I forgive everybody. There's no point in holding on to anger. Let's see, what else? I want to let people know that if they are suffering from substance abuse, I used to work at a drug and alcohol rehabilitation center. Be happy to give them the information, Let's see, what else? I want people to live a good life, and hopefully that'll be it.
If we were in person, I would ask you to sign my yearbook. And since you were not in our high school yearbook, Mike.
Yeah.
You
have a senior one.
I'm pulling out.
Oh, shit. Wow.
Shady Grove.
Wow. The Doomsday. Hold on. Wait a minute. Let me read it. What is the Doomsday Files?
I don't know. So your hobby is writing the Doomsday Files.
Oh, I know what that was.
What was it?
Oh, when I was a kid, I was coming up with a story. I wanted to write like a book, and I wanted to have like all of my friends in the book. And what it was supposed to be is the book was going to start off where everybody is on the bus and we're going on a field trip, and the bus falls through a time warp, or like we go into an alternate dimension, and the world is crazy and we have to figure out a way without teachers and parents how to survive. And it was like this thing, and like I was like, oh, well, this person is really good at math in our class, so maybe they'll be build the houses, and this person is really cute, so maybe they'll like make babies, and this person, I really don't like them, so they'll be dead. And then like they'll get attacked by the tiger, you know what I mean? Just like thinking about
stories. Sounds like Lord of the Flies.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. But yeah, it's like something stupid. And I was like, so what I would do is I would sit there and I'd write these short stories involving people in my class, and like, what were they doing? Right? Like, and what was their future going to be in this alternate reality? I don't know if that was nerdy. That was probably nerdy, but it was fun. It was, you know what I mean?
It sounds like the entire MCU right now, but
yeah, right. Maybe that's,
your future career was a builder. Your future career was
a builder. Yeah, I mean, you gotta understand. At that time, I was working for my grandfather. Even then, I was working for my grandfather.
Well, you were like 11 here.
Maybe that was before I worked for him.
Your favorite?
He was a stonemason, and I looked up to him. You know what I mean?
Your favorite book was Jurassic Park.
Yeah. I read the Crichton one, and it was like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah,
especially because it didn't involve warrior mice. I don't know if you remember any of the Redwall books, but those were like some of my favorites as a kiddo. And then I got to read my first adult book, and that was Jurassic Park, by Crichton. I
remember everyone was reading it. It got me really hyped to see the movie.
Yeah.
Favorite movie, Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. I didn't get to ask you about favorite movies in like high school era. Do you have one from like the late 90s that was like a favorite movie during that time, even if you weren't in Wissahickon?
Maybe The Matrix. I like that entire like alternate reality thing. I still like that.
Okay.
I like to try and maybe show that in some of my paintings. The Doomsday Files. Oh my fucking God. Wow.
And your favorite?
Brad. Holy shit.
Brought it back for you.
Man, you just
look for that.
So funny.
Look for that in the next series, The Doomsday Files by Visual Art.
Yes.
Favorite. So if Chris Rogers finds himself painted in some weird doomsday scenario, this is what it is.
That's what it is. That's
fourth,
right. There
it's
you go.
fifth grade coming to manifest.
Well, you know what's funny is I still have the Namaste series where I go on Facebook and I just pull somebody's picture and I draw it or paint it in a different and weird way, and I experiment with different styles and everything. And I had one. I had an idea for one for actually a bunch of people from Wissahickon. You know, I got it might not be dead yet. Is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring it back.
All right.
You know, You're everybody's getting a portrait. I told every single person. I've told everybody who's doing commissions from me recently. Look, every single person I'm friends with on Facebook, I'm going to get a piece of artwork on their wall. Otherwise, I'm kicking them off the friends list.
Nice.
You know, so you might end up with a piece too. Who knows? We'll see.
I love it.
All right.
Buy for my mom.
Sounds good, bro.
Your favorite school memory was Christmas vacation.
Was it?
Yeah.
When? What year?
So that would have been, you would have been 11. That would have been like 93.
Wow, you're good at math, man.
92, 93.
What grade were we?
Fifth grade. Fifth grade.
Oh shit.
So that probably would have been like 93, 94.
Yeah. It's not my favorite memory. I was trying to keep it. I try to keep it light on some things. I probably had some secret crushes that, I got to sit next to so and so. That was actually probably closer to what the favorite memory was.
Well, Mike, the good thing is the good thing is in this book. The good thing in this book's littered with like hearts that I used to draw around girls. So in this Shady Grove book, it fits.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, I hear you. That's funny, Shady Grove. My God, look at how skinny I am, man.
Yeah, you don't look. Well, you know what it is too. I feel like you've had the buzz cut. You've had the buzz cut for so long to see with just like regular jet black hair.
Yeah,
is fucking
I used to
weird.
have hair down to my chin. When I was in high school, I had hair down my chin. I grew it out.
I don't remember.
And then when I went to the military, I shaved it off. And it's all I do now because I don't want to pay for a haircut. I take that money and I put it in the stock market instead.
There you go.
Save some money. Yeah, hell yeah.
Mike, where can if people wanted to look at your art, buy your art, where can they do that?
Just Google my name. That'll pop up. When I Google it, it's like the first thing that pops up. It's
okay.
All of it.
So copy and paste Mike's name from this episode and put it into Google. And if you're interested in some, I'm not kidding you, just unbelievable art. He's being modest about it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Like I said, I'm gonna be doing some weird stuff coming up, but it's gonna be fun. And like, that's what's kind of important to me right now. You know what I mean? I need to go back to fun. Mm-hmm. And then I have a couple series I'm working on. Faces of the Fearless, where we're taking women, right? And really trying to make them look powerful and strong, because I feel like women need more positive, like, role models and heroes. Like, for example, when you ask a woman, who's your hero, right? A lot of them, they don't say back other females, right? A lot of them don't, right? If you ask a dude, who's your hero? 9 out of 10 times, at least, it's going to be a dude, mm-hmm. right? It's never going to be a woman. Right. So what I want to do is I want to try and change that a little bit. I want to try to give women more, female, female heroes to look up to. Yeah. And at least try to find women that are kicking ass and taking names right now and trying to legitimize them through the artwork and through a series. And I think that that's going to be powerful. I think that's going to be strong. I think there's going to be some cool stuff with that. With that being said, I have the Namaste series where if somebody becomes a friend with me on Facebook, at some point in your life, I'm going to do a piece of artwork for you. It's going to happen. Just like kind of be okay with that, because when it does happen, I don't want to have to surprise you, and I don't want you to be surprised at me, because I did warn you.
Yeah, it happened.
If you chose not to listen, that's a you problem. That's not a me problem. Mm-hmm. Anyway, right? I like to do I like to do the art. It's my way of sharing a piece of me to you guys. And
it's beautiful, dude.
This was fun.
This was great.
I appreciate it.
Mike, thank you for just like being so honest and open and sharing your life and really just being down to like get into like some of the the nitty gritty and nuance of, you know, feelings and life and growing up, that, you know, vulnerability that I think, especially for guys,
That's important.
for men, I say guys, but let's be honest, you know, for men to talk about with each other, it's not all the time. And I don't get this deep with other men on the podcast, but it's nice to
like stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's nice to, you know, be able to share those vulnerabilities and commonplace, and even like challenge each other on some things, and, you know, just have such a cooler understanding of who you were and who you are, and, being okay, and not even being okay with that, but just understanding it and accepting it, and, you know, an understanding, I guess.
Yeah. Understanding is important. You know, just like I say, we had a moment of a connection here, Brad. It's a good thing.
We did it.
Yeah, hoorah, brother. Hoorah.